Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be tackling the Invincible Iron Man issues 5 and 6, both written by Gerry Duggan with art by Juan Frigeri and guest artist Andrea Di Vito. Tony Stark goes head to head with the mutant-hating billionaire Fei Long, who recently took over Stark Unlimited, enacting a hostile takeover of the company as Tony dealt with some threats planted around the world by Fei Long himself. Tony gets to work on discovering who his enemy is these issues, getting a brief rundown on him from Emma Frost and Sunfire, wonderfully tying it back to Duggan's time on the X-Men where Sunfire fought the villain on Phobos early on in his run. Issue 5 spends a lot of time with Fei Long as he goes through Tony's company and kind of guts it, firing people, making people shut up so they don't reveal secrets and lies about him, and just really cool seeing him just come in and just take over everything and just wipe the slate clean almost. This also leads him to discovering something left by Howard Stark for his son, something that could revolutionize the world. And what does the villain do? Well, he takes notes on it and then burns the evidence. I thoroughly enjoy just how dastardly evil Duggan writes Fei Long. He's just such a shitheel in the highest order, and him constantly gloating over Tony and acting all high and mighty is just an absolute treat. Fei Long's problems with Tony are also explored a little more here in this issue, with ties to Hickman's Avengers and Tony and the team winning Mars for the human race, only to turn their back on them to come back to Earth and help out the humans, ends up being the big core motivator behind Fei Long's hatred for Tony, and it's not lost on me the parallels between him and a real-world Mars-loving billionaire, but Duggan is really subtle with all of the jabs to him, and it never really comes off at feeling like the character only exists to make fun of said Twitter-owning billionaire. His plans around Tony and Stark Unlimited are laid bare here as well, as he took over Stark Unlimited to begin using the Iron Man armor patent to create Iron Sentinels, the mutant-killing giant robots, only this time with Iron Man enhancements. Tony has almost always fought against his own creations, both in the form of villains stealing or taking his tech and repurposing it and perverting it, or his own arrogance creating something he loses control over. But what I like about it this time round is Duggan makes sure to let the reader know that this isn't just some variation of the Iron Man armor that he has to fight and overcome. It's a substantial upgrade, meaning Tony needs to begin to think better and design something new and improved, kind of forcing an evolution or a mutation on him, very much like how Fei Long forced himself to evolve to what he is now. And I like that parallel between Tony and Fei Long, and I like that Tony is being forced to do this, especially when we started this series and when we started the Chris Cantwell series as well. The whole premise was that he's kind of going back to basics, which is why his armor kind of reverted to a more classical look. It was very simple, very down to earth, and him having to be forced to design something else is going to be quite interesting, and I'm intrigued to see what he comes up with. Issue 6 tackles a rather introspective Tony as he hides out from Fei Long and kind of licks his wounds as he develops a plan, remembering an adventure from the past that saw him tangle with Emma Frost, West Coast Avengers, and almost all of Spider-Man's rogues gallery. This was quite a fun palate cleanser issue after the big reveal of the Sentinels and Fei Long's revelations about Howard Stark in the last issue, and afforded Duggan the chance to tell a pretty classic Iron Man story, free from all of the current Marvel Universe ongoings. It also lets him return to the fan favorite Silver Centurion armor, which he used quite a bit during these 6 issues in the flashbacks, since we had one a couple issues ago during Armor Wars, and I'm all for it since it's a fantastic looking armor, and guest artist Andrea Di Vito emulates the style of the mid-80s really well, in that it doesn't feel like a modern artist just trying to copy the style of the pages from that era verbatim, like it often happens, but instead it keeps a lot of the type paneling from that comic and how the comics in that era were set out, while also modernizing the action sequences. Duggan doesn't just have the issue take us back to a simpler time in Tony's life and give us some fun action sequences, he uses the flashback as a teachable moment for Tony, who remembers the last time he underestimated a formidable foe and it cost him quite a bit. So this time around he's not going to be doing that, and he's going to hit back against Fei Long before he has a chance to hit him again. Duggan also kind of fires the Chekhov's gun that Chris Cantwell installed into the series with Tony going and getting some of the weapons that he took off the black market during the Cantwell run, what he spent all his family fortune on acquiring, planning on using those weapons against Fei Long and against his own company, which is quite interesting. I'm quite surprised that Duggan is pulling the trigger on this quite early on in the story, though that being said, the weapons he does get are just kind of like laser guns and energy rifles and not any of the bigger weapons that Tony confiscated, like the 10 rings, which Riri Williams still has and is still on the table there somewhere, so I'm intrigued to see if she ends up turning up as well. Fei Long's role in this issue is basically non-existent, and I love that that's a deliberate choice on that. This isn't something that just got lost in all of the different plots. This echoes his final words to Tony from issue 5, where he told the hero that he'll only find out about what he's got planned when everyone else does. That everyone else being everyone in the Marvel Universe, as well as us the reader, effectively putting us on the same information level as Tony. And really, with something like Fei Long, anything can and will happen. You know, he's still trying to take Mars over, he's got Phobos under his control with Orchis, so I'm very much eager to see if any of that comes into play with his Stark Sentinels, which I guess he's probably going to release on Krakoa, or at least attack the New York treehouse the mutants have set up, but I'm intrigued to see where he's going to go with this, since again, he's unknown factor, he can do anything. Jerry Duggan and his talented team continue to make the Invincible Iron Man an engaging and rewarding experience, tying the book so closely to the X-Men series of books while also diving deep back into Tony's past with some good old-fashioned Iron Man action and intrigue from the 80s, building on past events and growing Tony as a character through them in some very cool ways. I am going to give both the Invincible Iron Man issues 5 and 6 a 9 out of 10.